guys, we are back with the Bureau XCOM Declassified. We have some esteemed guests here. We have Morgan and Joe, who you guys can't see. He's off cam. He's going to be driving, though. They're from 2K Marin. Also, we got, of course, Ryan Schubert with us here. We're back. Second day in a row here now.
2 days.
But, you know, we're going to hop in here. If you guys have questions for either Morgan or Joe, go away and fire them off in chat. We're going to get to see some cool new stuff 5 days before the game actually releases. So let's hop in there.
Sweet. Hey, thanks for having us, guys. I guess I'll set the stage of where we're at. So leading up to the Bureau's release, we were showing this mission that we were calling Signal. Took place in New Mexico. Had Carter and his squad of XCOM badasses go down to the field to sort of look into this sleepwalker phenomenon that was going on in Pima, where you went through that, you saw that something wasn't right with the residents, and things were awkward. Well, we figured now we're so close to release, we should show the second half of that experience. So
fantastic.
Here we are. Carter and his squad have made their way through the town of Pima, New Mexico, and they're starting to get closer to this giant alien installation. We're actually trying to go in through the bottom. So Joe over there, our driver, is going to be in control of Mr. Carter and his team for this hop.
Oh, man.
Yes, a couple silicoids popping out of the walls, affectionately called blobs. I mean, one of the fun things about most XCOM games is that it's sort of this tension between sort of tactical military, but also it has the boo factor, the spook factor, that tension and terror. So you can see here the poor population, sort of brain dead, getting into pods, being reclamated by our alien invaders, the Zujari, the outsiders. They're taking our people and using them against us. And if you've played the game, even right in the first level, you'll get to see what usage they get out of these sleepwalkers.
I was able to fight it.
So we'll wound the corner down here, and we'll just make a beeline to spoilers, the bottom basement. That's going to give us access to this alien tower.
The Silva's team came this way.
And I guess as Joe moves forward, just to follow the basics for someone who's new to the Bureau, I mean, the central premise, there's two main things we're trying to do with the Bureau, XCOM Declassified. One is to tell the never-before-told origin story of XCOM as an organization, and tell it through something uniquely new, our viewpoint character. So you play as Agent William Carter, a recent joiner of the Bureau that will get rechristened into XCOM as it changes its focus from foreign threat, i.e. Soviet Russia, to foreign threat, i.e. you're not from our planet, are you? The Bureau was born during the course of our game. The other major goal was to give a unique perspective into the classic XCOM universe. So rather than global XCOM commander, I control all aspects of our organization, we wanted to tell the story and play with the fantasy of what's it like to be the field commander, the guy with the team, with his boots on the ground, having to make commands, be smart, be sharp, living and dying in the moment. And so to do that, we have what we call the battle focus interface, which is your real-time control of your squad mates. It allows you to issue a host of good, complex tactical orders, things as simple as, hey, you, shoot at him, or hey, you, go here, to unleashing powers and abilities, and then link them into chains to build tactical plans. Now, at first blush, like a lot of folks would be like, hey, yeah, radio menu, it looks like Mass Effect. It's like, yes, radio is a great way to allow a controller D-pad to pick a lot of options. On PC, we actually have an interface that looks a lot more like an MMO toolbar because it's a better interface if you're a keyboard and mouse guy. Although we support controllers on PC as well. The sort of there's a few obviously inspirations from ME that comes up, but I jump right into it because I think the comparisons are at least for a battle focus, are more visual than in actual gameplay, because the big key difference is you're able to link and queue orders into a list of things.
Like go here,
go here, shoot this guy, then do this. The other big difference in our game, that sort of agent ordering, that that microcontrol, using the battlefield, using everything, alien disposition, terrain, and your own tools is required. It actually demands a lot more engagement with the system, and failure to engage at that high level to really be what we've called the combat quarterback.
Like in Mass Effect is a little bit more optional.
Exactly.
You didn't need to be all over that kind of control, and here it's a centerpiece to the mechanic of the game.
Yeah, the whole game's built around this concept of what's it like to lead your team in battle, the big L on that lead, and literally play what we kind of deem as a tactical puzzle, like who am I fighting? What is the battlefield giving me? What can I do? And as we go through the flow in here, you'll be able to see sort of more highlights of how that comes together. I figured I'd just jump in that head on. So we've made our way into the bottom of this outsider tower. It's where they're reclaiming the sleepwalkers. Humanity is being loaded up into pods. And we're going to start to thread our way through this, uncovering more of the mystery. This takes place towards the beginning, middle of the game. So if the game was put in a 3-act structure, this is sort of tail end of Act 1, early Act 2.
All right.
So the Bureau has been rechristened XCOM. We have rightfully gotten our I don't know if I can use bad words or not on this. So
Feel
can.
free.
we've
Yeah,
rightly
it's fine.
we've gotten our asses kicked right off the get-go from an unknown alien threat.
Okay.
Our heels are against the wall. XCOM is just now starting to make its steps back. Like, we're not quite even. We're not 50-50 in the fight, but
Gotcha.
we're going out of full defense and on the offense. So Carter and his team have come here to get the information and the technology that's going to give them access to find some sort of mechanism to take the fight back the enemy's direction, if you catch my drift.
Yes.
We've been fighting terrestrially for a long time. We're interested in figuring out, is there a way to take it to them?
Yeah.
Where they live, where they sleep? I try not to spoil, but I'm the biggest spoiler about this game. I mean, it's no small moment for us. In addition to sort of the Don Draper-esque '60s man in suit images of Carter and his team that we've shown, here we have the sort of Steve McQueen '60s bullet inspiration for Carter. Like, there's definitely a From the Earth to the Moon or The Right Stuff space race inspired version of Carter and team for a reason. That we'll get to as
And
well.
with some of the, Elliot Ness drive
Yeah.
to hunt down the Galactic Capone here.
Exactly. It's a funny thing. I just rewatched that movie with Costner not too
Yeah.
long ago. I was like, man, this is so good. I mean, it's not 100% time appropriate, but it's the same. It gets the same themes.
Yes,
That, like I am not beef-necked Space Marine, although there's nothing wrong with beef-necked Space Marines. Go on with my Warhammer fetish.
Right, as we were just talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I am omni-geeky on cross directions. But, in that XCOM vibe, one of the things we're going for, it is this focus on you're using your brains in equal part to, your physical abilities and your gunfire. Like, it really
This isn't just brawn to the max.
Yeah, it's not like, just run and gun, cover shooter, or quarter shooter. It's like you got to think. You got to think about your team and how to use them. So in this latter half, we're starting to see the transport ships come in, and the focus in this flow we're showing here, the earlier parts of the level that we showed were huge, big, larger combat set pieces. You're going to see some smaller scale combats here, but we're doing that to buy some time so we can get to a cool, unique gameplay cherry on top finale in the time we have. But hopefully, as we round the corner and we get in here, we can start talking a little more about the meat and potatoes of the combat system.
So we got a few questions from chat. I guess Jedi06 wants to know, are there new enemy types in this game, or are they kind of pulled from the original and Enemy Unknown?
So both. So first, there's some old familiar frenemies, as I've started to like calling them. The sectoids, mutons, silicoids. We've contextualized them because we're an origin story. So it's like our sectoids are brought to the planet enslaved by our new alien race, the Zujari, the outsiders. Our mutons are mercenaries for them, guns for hire. And so we wanted to explain how we brought them here in '62. So you'll see old, familiar faces, but the Zujari are new addition to the XCOM buffet of bad guys, because I think every XCOM game, it's beholden to add something to that buffet, because it's all about the menagerie of evil, are one of the big additions. And they're a cultural designator, but they come in multiple flavors and types. So there's a whole host of unique ones, whether it's the ground-pounding foot soldiers, to their heavy elites, to basically Carter's corollary, what we call the commanders, the different flavors that are the enemy's battlefield commander. It's almost like chess and two kings fighting out, and you're going to have to target prioritize them because they are boosting and coordinating with our squads, just like you're trying to do the same. So
Gotcha.
there's a good healthy mix. The cool thing about XCOM is there's always room for more new aliens,
of course.
Which is great. It's almost like Star Trek like that. So good question, Jedi. So I don't know if we have more, because I was going to just briefly talk about in this first fight, this larger scale fight, you can see how Joe's using battle focus to do what we call...
He's laying out a lot of stuff right now.
Exactly. It's called the commander loop. So our hope is that people get into a fight, they appraise the situation, they build a plan. What agents do I have? What levels are they? What powers? How am I going to kick this off? Who's going to go where? They set that plan in motion, and then fights on. Their agents are following their orders. You're running and gunning yourself, trying to take down targets, and you'll be going in and out of the twitch and the brain at different rhythms and different tempos as the fight goes on, and that forms the loop. And we think that's very much in line with XCOM, and our hope is that is a good fulfillment of the promise of what's it like to be an XCOM field commander in the squad. Like, if you look at screenshots, you're like, oh, it's just third person, it's gears, not quite right, little more run and gunny, or you go, oh, that doesn't look fundamentally different than just XCOM, because you'll see the third person camera. It's like, again, not quite. It's this goal, this experimental hybrid of living in those two worlds and giving that unique view, which is really been what we've been striving for.
I mean, it's definitely more tactical than I thought it was going to be, because I kind of had those kind of same perceptions at first.
Which I
and
totally
then, but,
understand, right?
Like, yeah, but when you actually see it in action, it's like, wow, there's so much more depth than what I thought.
Yeah, so sometimes you're in it sort of as like what we might expect is from a third-person shooter, but then you're also sort of like seamlessly going between that and then plan and move and then fight again, sort of a cycle of.
Yeah, it's sort of this weird like battlefield ecology, I guess you could also call it that way. But we sort of like playing at these different rhythms and different tempos. Like a lot, I mean, obviously classic XCOM and Firaxis is excellent. XCOM are huge inspirations. But we also looked at like things like the old school Rainbow Sixes when like the PC variants, or even earlier titled Ghost Recons. And Full Spectrum Warrior is another
one of my favorites.
Yeah, which is a great one on Xbox One, right? Like that was a great strong focused tactical game. But these games, it took the militaristic bent and went a little more hardcore. In some ways, we sort of look at it as that the game, it's a militaristic squad versus squad based tactical combat game, but we're replacing sort of Navy SEALs and Russian Spetsnaz with XCOM operatives and alien threat, but trying to keep it like that real. So the players will have, if they're thinking cover, they're thinking flanking positions, height advantages, all these things are actually rewarded in the game, both in terms of just making things easier for yourself, but actually statistical benefits. Like
I was about to say, are there known statistical benefits? That's definitely something that came with earlier XCOM titles, was, sort of like you get a sense that there's like a mathematical certainty to certain advantages like height or
absolutely.
Certain types of equipment. Is that here, or is it a little bit more freeform?
It's definitely here in regard. So if Joe were to say, if there's still enemies alive, go into battle focus right now and target up an enemy with one of his agents on the mark for target order, that's going to give him an in-cover modifier, a damage percent modifier, and that's going to be heavily influenced by weapon type against target type, flanking benefits, height advantage benefits, and you can draw that information to be there to help you build your combat plan.
Okay,
but,
that's pretty cool.
So but the goal also being fast and accessible, because you're doing this plan and the clock is ticking. Like the longer you're giving up your battlefield advantage, the quicker the enemy is taking that advantage. They're taking the flanks. They're pressuring you in. They're trying to separate your squad.
Now, does this system encourage or sort of demand a certain play style, or is there a certain encouragement for players to think outside the box with the system?
We definitely are hoping, like what we've done in Bio 2, like at 2K Marin, we like to build these games where we think of them as gameplay tool chess. You're a bunch of tools gamer. You figure out how you want to put them together and check your success. So we're open to different types of tactical planning, different combinations of agents brought, because we don't know what you're going to bring. There's 4 classes. You're customizing them. They're leveling up like an RPG party.
Okay.
So there's a lot of player agency in what they're bringing to the table. And so in that way, we're very open, to how the players are going to tackle that. The big thing is, what the game is absolutely not open for, it is not open for run and gun Rambo. Like it will punish.
You cannot play it that way.
Yeah, you cannot play it. You will get success in moments or in situations, like, it's 3
short bursts of success with that style.
Yeah, but if you try to not engage with ordering agents or leveling them up or utilizing team tactics and really leading your team, you're going to really hit a hard barrier and not too far into the game.
Okay.
And in that regard, it's one of those things where I think, like the classic XCOM game and in Firaxis' XCOM game, like a good quality XCOM game makes a statement about what kind of play is encouraged and what kind of play is not.
Right.
And so we had to take that line.
That's that classic learning curve for XCOM. Of there will be a point where you just can't do that anymore, and you gotta.
So I gotta
learn some new tactics. And
notice Joe used lift earlier with Carter. Part of the reason why I'm bringing that up is because there's a question here that says, will there be diversity in ally abilities and enemy types, such as, will it force me to tackle battles and make tactics in a certain way against these more special type of enemies? So, like, do your other teammates have different abilities like lift or something like that?
So everyone in the XCOM squad is fulfilling a role, right? With Carter as the commander, and so the 8 different agent classes: Commando, Recon, Support, which is not a sexy name, but it's an awesome class. It's like he's like the cleric, right?
Yeah.
Not sexy, but damn useful.
Support never sounds sexy. It's always important.
Yeah, and engineer. They're all basically, you can map them to like classic party roles. Like here's the meat shield, here's the DPSer, here's the pet class, here's there's the supporter. They have customized, unique powers. No one agent type can have all the powers. You'll make choices at
nice.
different level up points to customize them. Though you'll be able to have a roster of them, so you can really get it's all about getting a bench depth of possibilities. So they will, based on who you've decided to pick, what level they're at, how you've customized them, they're going to give you different opportunities to come up with different combos or different thoughts about how to utilize those powers. Some tactics are obviously better against certain enemies than others. Like there's enemies that have like an ablative armor system, and you have to get through the outer shell to get to the creamfilled center. Right? The guy that is all about the powers against the creamfilled center is going to be pretty useless
against the armor.
Until someone else has opened up that opportunity. Certain things are like there's a guy that can pull aggro, and he's a great way to set up tactical possibilities, like these sort of utility powers. Please come to me, pull the enemies out of cover into your waiting ambush of, say, the mine that you've laid in ambush, or the rocket turret that you've deployed and then lifted to have a height advantage over the guy that now is exposed. Finding these combinations is going to be a cool thing for players, and is one of the cool ways for us when we're developing the game to go, what's it mean to be a leader? A leader means there are options, you'll think up plans, you'll try them, you'll see how they go. So we really wanted to come up with a lot of powers that had a lot of different types of utility, and then could be plugged into each other in interesting ways for how you were going to hit a situation. And then the enemy types, we all were designed with a battlefield role in mind as well. Why do you exist? I exist to hunker down and cover and be hard to kill. I exist to fly over the entire battlefield and be a cover denier and come at you there. I exist to mind control your agents to turn your team against you. And so they'll each, based on the combinations of
fantastic.
Who does that?
Awesome.
So the combos that come up, what we call the tactical puzzles of the combat field, are all like, who's deployed, what's out in the battlefield, what have you brought, a unique situation is going to present
itself. It sounds
itself.
like the way that you're planning the scenarios from the other side and setting up the challenges for the players is setting up those types of problems to solve as they get into it. So that I'm guessing that each mission will have that kind of like, okay, now there's a new type of thing that's affecting this one strategy I'm used to using, and now I have to change my strategy.
Try something different, reaffirm something you're doing it, sort of spread it out. Like we definitely wanted to make sure that because we don't want to deny the players from getting good at a thing, because that's great. It feels great in a game. Like, I got a skill, I'm going to use it. It's awesome. I'm whipping ass with it. But we wanted to keep stretching and pulling you and having the game require more and more and build on the skills that you have learned and build on the challenges, so that you felt that you were going up that hill to success. So that when we do let you, we won't let you because we make it really hard. But when we get to the end of the game and you get that final can of whoop ass, like, you feel like you've done something, right? Like both narratively, gameplay as a player, like you feel like you go on a journey. Like when I played the first XCOM game back in '94, the first time I got to Mars, defeated Mars, like, I felt like I had done something worthy of praise.
Exactly.
Sadly, my mom did not quite feel the same way, but I felt that I had achieved a goal.
So, in other XCOM games, there are, different size squads. Are you always one leader and two backup, basically? Or does that change?
Yeah, we experimented with different squad sizes, but what we found was it was easier for us and easier in our focus test for people to map to I'm the controller, one guy right, one guy left, in terms of controlling guys in the battlefield. And so we stuck with that paradigm because it was just easier for people to grok. When we had it more, it offered more possibilities. But it was a hard wall, we found, for players to see a third-person cover game and begin to make the leap of, but I can't Rambo, or I can't. I have to use these guys, and I think it's like ME, but it's different because I need to do this. We decided that we'd keep the squad size so we could keep it, that challenge a little easier for them to get in and put the depth inside of what each of the guys you could bring in the battlefield with you could do.
So I have a follow-up question then.
Certainly.
If I get halfway through a mission, and I realize that I would be better off with like a recon instead of a support, and I've only got these two guys, like, am I like shit out of luck?
Yeah, no. We're going to debug over here really quick.
We're going to fly?
Yeah, we're cheating.
All right, let me fire off some questions while we're doing some debug here.
All right, so to answer your question, so what we have is a concept of these things called resupply stations, which are little components that we've seeded out throughout the battlefields themselves, throughout the level flows, that allow you to not only, they rearm, sort of respec and level up your agents, but also pull guys off the roster of agents that you built and put them in the field. So
Okay.
So if you felt you've hit somehow this passive wall of like, oh man, I brought 2 snipers to a fist fight, you have the opportunity to go, okay, that was a bad call.
Yeah.
Still within the mission, swap them out and do something different.
Okay.
Carter doesn't want to fly.
Yeah,
So let me get some questions in.
Yeah.
Good question from Anna's247.
Well,
That's the last one.
Yeah, let's just switch out while we pull the questions. So
Sure.
Joe, to help some illustrate some points, let's just go into say like rescue really quick, and we'll check that out too.
Sakatumi wants to know, will you be able to steal tech and research human-alien combo tech as in classic XCOM games?
That's a good question.
So yes, but not in the literal way that they're probably meaning. So one of the decisions that we had to make when we were like, what's the fantasy we're pulling off, and with ours being battlefield commander, not global organizational leader, was that some things didn't make sense for like a game focused on the guy in his field leading his team
Dealing
in
with
real time.
resource management and research.
Research, and we didn't have a concept of time between missions.
Yep.
Like the classic XCOM formula gives you the strategic sandbox and then the tactical combat module. But without that strategic sandbox, we don't have time between missions, resources that can spend, passive fail points. So we had to contextualize our concept of acquiring alien technology, moving from bullet-based gun weapons to laser weapons to plasma, a little more narratively in our game. So it's a little more closer to the shooter paradigm of certain unique drops, introduce something into the flow that from that point on can be equipped by Carter and his agents, because it was better with the
So if I
conventions.
find a laser pistol in the field, does that becomes an option?
Exactly.
Of
Yeah.
something I can equip later on.
Yeah, we followed that paradigm. It matched better with the third-person model than the other model for us. That being said, it is one of the things where we're still constantly thinking about, what is a good version of that the classic formula would work here. But it just wasn't something that we felt was matching well. And that was one of the big sort of the development challenges for the game in general, was in trying to find a unique perspective on the XCOM franchise. There are certain tenets that are amazing in the classic game and amazing, obviously, in Phyrexis game that didn't work in the new perspective. The new perspective would actually do a bad version of that.
Right.
And so we had to pick and
Try to
choose.
shoehorn it in when it just won't quite work.
It just felt awkward. It felt like, that's not a good version of that. That's a bad version of that. So it's sort of we had to find different ways to either express it narratively or get the gist of it in a new way. But research was one of the major components. That, and just for the questioners there, like base construction was another one, which is the guy leading your squad in the field isn't deciding where the barracks rooms are.
Right.
But that being said, there's a ton of XCOM, in addition to just the tactical combat that made it ways in the game, the squad customization, agent perma-death, the consequence of your decisions are lethal, and guys that you've spent a lot of time with are going to be gone forever, making, in our game, even harder than the turn-based game because there's no ability to stall. Our campaign is moving forward. The choices you make are going to really come to bear on you constantly in each mission, and if you fail to engage, you don't have the safety net of saying, I'm not going to down the commander ship just yet because I'll take the funding hit because I'm not ready. It's we're moving.
No, you don't have that option. Can't wait it out.
Ryan, don't name me any of this. Right? It never goes well. Everyone in the office that names someone an office member, they die. They always die. It's a thing.
Will we have naming ability in this?
Absolutely. You can customize your agents with unique names. You can do their unique color schemes. Our art director was very much against the color schemes because he was like, why would you let someone make my beautiful models look silly? Because we're like, fun. That's why.
Because it's fun.
That's why we do that. So you can change their costuming. You can name them. You're obviously able to personalize and customize their powers and abilities and weapons. And when they do fall, they will be memorialized within XCOM headquarters when you go back to base between missions in the Wall of Remembrance.
Wall of Remembrance.
Fantastic.
Or the list of your failures as a commander. Here are people that counted on you. Anything else coming in?
So are there multiple endings? And I'm trying to figure out this first part of this guy's question.
Yes, that's a great question. So let me tell you how the game ends. No, play.
All right, we're done.
So there are decisions that you'll make within the game itself that will have personalized repercussions. Like you'll choose to do a thing, and that thing will happen, and that will be unique and different than, say, how your friend may choose. There is definitely the ending of the game that you will get will be based off of a couple of key major decisions that you'll make, and will be personalized to that. So there are multiple endings for sure that are pretty significant to how the narrative resolves itself.
Okay. So the first part of his question too was, how is this story connected to, I guess, the enemies? Like, how does the relationship working? I guess is.
Oh,
what he's
between
asking.
in the franchise lore, or?
In this game.
In this game, so
I'm trying to phrase this question better for you.
No, I dig it. So, I mean, the central story, I mean, there's a lot of themes we have going on, but to put it in summary, it's 1962, it's the heart of the Cold War. America and Soviet Union are in an arms race or in a space race. It's a powder keg ready for one match to set it off. At that point, aliens invade. You get pulled in the organization, the Bureau. It's been headed by a guy named Marin. He has actually been clued into the possibility of an alien threat. When it comes, it's no surprise to him. The Bureau gets rechristened XCOM. You're off to the races. Now, the central story is all about your conflict with an alien force called the Outsiders, the Zujari. And it's sort of a consumeristic analog to the 60s itself. They've come, they've tapped their planet dry of resources.
Gotcha.
They've come to our little mud ball. They've enslaved sectoids. They're ready to rock and roll and fight it out with us. Think of them sort of like the Harkonnens from Dune as well. Like they got dirty, filthy tech. They don't care. They become the central opponent to the Bureau, and you as William Carter have to first understand the nature of the enemy, and a very sort of classic thing, acquire the tools and resources to be able to fight them on their own terms, because your 45 is kind of good against a sectoid, but it's not against a raging armored flying muton with a jetpack. You need to get some, as we'll see soon here, you'll need to get some better armaments, and then ultimately learn how to take the fight to them. At the same time, in our 60s Cold War conspiracy, and that's sort of the vibe of an origin story, we're trying to keep it a secret hidden war. So we're fighting in the nooks and crannies in 60s America. We're not fighting in Manhattan. We're not fighting in Chicago. Because we can't let the world know that we're on the ropes, lest they take advantage of our weakness in this moment in time to strike as well. And so there's a conspiratorial sort of a cover-up. There's sort of an X-Files, like the world cannot know how close we came to defeat, so we'll hide some of this. We'll say like, oh yes, that town that took off, well, there was an errant missile in, say, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then that took that town out. We won't tell the truth. But we're trying to also plant the seeds of how XCOM will then reemerge as the international global organization that we all know. And I guess, in the original game, I believe it was 1999. In Firaxis's game, it's like 5 minutes after tomorrow, but not so distant future. Which 1999 is not the not so distant future anymore.
No.
Our flying cars. But that's sort of the gist of the story, and the goal is both to tell origin of the organization, add a new threat, contextualize that, give you a strong narrative component of having a viewpoint character, William Carter, and then play a lot with the tropes of the alien invasion stories to begin with, the conspiratorial nature of the period, and have some fun. Long-winded answer, but that's my
it's a very good answer.
Very good answer, yeah.
It's fire.
So here we go in this fight, and this is a good one to go back to some of the tactical stuff. Joe's doing a great thing where he's like sort of split his squad, put a guy on a high flank, running a guy on the right flank, deployed a turret, trying to do a scissors movement on this elite muton in his jump pack, pull it aggro with the Ton ability. This is me playing sort of armchair Madden, talking about everything that's going on, but it does show like the plan in effect. Like without any of this going on, if Joe just tried to go rough and tumble with this guy head on, this would be a 5-second fight.
Go well,
it'd be a 5-second fight. He's trying to get through the ablative armor. He's had to bring it all to bear, and that was a 3v1. That's like, hey, great advantage. It rarely gets as easy as 3v1.
Wait till there's more of those.
Yeah, but
do the combos end up netting you more damage?
The combos net more damage. You get more experience point rewards based on combinatory actions to help further encourage you to try different things and bring different people to the table.
Actually, yeah.
And it's a great way to level up your guys. Also, a great way to level up your guys is going on what we're going on here. This one of the side missions, which are secondary missions that thread off the main campaign. If it was an RPG, think of them like side quests. And they're a good way for you to both engage in more content, find more hidden items, farm up XP to boost up your agents, and generally boost your roster. The best thing you can do
that's
is
sort of the closest you come to being able to stall the progression is doing these side quests, side missions.
Side missions, they're a great way to stall. They stall the progression a little bit and let you manage your roster, because what you really want to do as a smart commander is not just have the 2 agents that you fall in love with. You level them up to max and have a bunch of newbies on the bench. Like you kind of always want to have a credible lineup. There's actually a third mission type which you don't actually engage with yourself, but you send your missions on, called dispatch missions, which is a passive way to go, I'm going on a main mission with these guys. You 4 dudes go do this, and when I come back to base, you're going to be better.
So you can level agents that aren't on the mission with you.
Exactly,
basically.
yeah. And for, again, trying to encourage, build up that roster, take some experiments, and you're much more likely to swap agents in and out if it doesn't feel like you're having to babysit them so much.
All the time.
Yeah,
right.
and then,
which was something that especially in the Firaxis game, was something that you had to do from time to time. was take one of those brand new guys right behind the ears into a mission and
Yeah, all right, Timmy, let's see if you make
maybe
the grade.
get them killed.
So we had actually, in classic XCOM, and it did it again in Firaxis and now in with Vero, tradition that started in 1994 with XCOM operatives, and that they didn't get a name until they survived one mission. It was sort of their coming of age requirement, like,
Yeah.
Yep.
you have now survived a mission, welcome to your name.
Yep.
Before then, we don't want to know you.
Yeah, that's definitely how I played XCOM, that's for sure.
Couple more questions trickling through. Are there vehicles?
There are no vehicles.
Okay.
There are no vehicles other than the sort of the narrative delivery of our Sky Ranger,
Okay.
our helicopter that takes you in, and the only UFO in the game built by the United States Air Force, which will that counts.
Randomly generated levels or no?
No randomly generated levels. Probably very difficult to do randomly generated levels when you're in a third-person perspective like this
Right.
with a narrative component threading through everything. That all the levels themselves are crafted. There are dynamic aspects of spawns to enemies and whatnot, but the actual flow is not. Here's a map that has been made for me to fight. It is structured much more like a linear narrative combat experience.
Gotcha.
So if I were playing through a second time, would I be encountering the same enemies in the same places, or is there variation in
There are
AI
places.
behavior?
There are places where there's variation on spawn and behavior, but in general, the fights themselves are going to be a little more consistent, reliable. What will be the
Right.
big difference would be changes based off difficulty mode that you selected.
Right. Okay.
If you went back, say, on a harder difficulty, it would be a different setup, and then agent arrangement of what you brought with you.
Right.
Not sure if you can answer this one, but how many boss fights?
How many boss fights in the game? So there's numerous moments that are boss-like.
Okay.
I'm going through this one. I would say there's like 3 or 4 like boss-like events. Where a single entity becomes that sort of focus.
Yep.
But there's numerous spikes that are like, this is a Alamo-esque engagement. Like this is I fought a bunch in this level, but this this fight is the one I'll remember. The Battle of the Gas Station. Right?
Great. So if I was more perceptive, I would probably know the answer to my question. But so you have sort of like a camera control when you go into your command menu. Is there a sort of like also a kind of fog of war equivalent? Can you see where all the enemies are if you fly that camera around, or are you?
Yeah.
Or do you have just what your agents can see?
So the camera has a tether, so it can only go so far.
Okay.
So when you spawn in within the radius of the camera's range, we show you everything, but
Okay.
we don't necessarily show you guys beyond that. That may be coming from different avenues. So we want to retain a little bit of the XCOM surprise,
Right.
But there's no presto changeo, like poof, like it's just spawned in right there, like whoa,
Yeah.
like so it's a God's eye view to a degree, but it is about your perspective and your agent's perspective on the battlefield.
Okay.
We're going to cheat in some different guys so we can check something out. Let's give the support guy some love. Hey, I love. Support guy's got the rally. It's like the group buff power. Love it.
nice.
It's like suddenly everyone is doing much more damage per second.
I'll fire off some more questions, I guess. Any confirmed future plans for DLC?
I cannot confirm future plans for DLC that would be very fun to be played and to be working on. I would not confirm that.
Okay.
So no confirmation on
I would
DLC.
absolutely not confirm such a thing.
Any characters in the game have any relations to characters from Enemy Unknown?
Well, we take place a lot of years beforehand, so
Okay.
there's no 100% tie per se, because there's a lot of time that's passed. And one of the things that we wanted to do narratively was to really embrace the period. So a lot of our characters are a little older than like your average game character. Like Carter's in his 40s, Falk's in his 60s. Like I think our game and our story feels more sort of like miniseries-esque than some are blockbuster, and we're trying to get that
Okay.
from the Earth to the Moon, like HBO miniseries kind of way, not like a rom-com dynasty miniseries, right? Like when BSG first came out, like we're trying to skew older. So by the time the aliens come back, most of our characters are either probably too aged or have died of cancer or their other ills of smoking and drinking it up in the
Right.
60s before people got sensible. There are some thematic ties, obviously, and there's some story ties that go in to try to bring the universe into a cohesive thing, but not a direct like. And then there's William Carter being wheeled out. Greetings, Commander. He's got his iron lung.
Yeah.
I think you answered this earlier, but 2 squad mates plus Carter is your max, right? Like
Out in the field of battle.
Field of battle.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. With a roster, if I'm doing my math right, I believe it's of 8 possible agents.
Nice. Let's see. Iron Man mode?
There is no Iron Man mode per se. That being said, like we do have in our commander mode is that sort of like that's the difficulty mode that we play and fail to own. And get laughed at from the whole team. Like that's when, like basically what our difficulty modes do, they do the standard things. They do like damage output is increased, damage output is decreased, the enemies have more health. Like that's the easy stuff. They also do sort of increased tactics. Like the enemies actually get smarter, they get harder, they get they come at you stronger. And we really play with perma-death more, going up each difficulty level. So like on the maximum difficulty level, if an agent's dropped in the fight, you can stabilize him, but he won't get back up in the fight.
Okay.
And the previous ones, he drops if you stabilize him, he gets back up. On the maximum one, if a guy dies, you can only get reinforcements at a supply crate versus we would chopper them in on previous difficulty levels. So it gets progressively just harder of an experience, and the repercussions get...
So if I'm in like an easier difficulty level, one of my guys goes down, like it's possible to get a replacement like there.
Yeah, bam.
And then, but if on a harder difficulty, I got to make it through that fight.
And maybe another one.
And maybe another one.
Yeah, and so your 3 become 2, and then your 2 become 1, and then you're like, I can't really do this
Are we
without my buddies.
also getting like ammo limits in here now?
Someone asked earlier, but I saw a lot of pickups like during the fight, right?
Yeah, I saw a run out of ammo a couple of times.
Every gun type
and there's
has
bullets. Yeah,
it has bullets and an ammo limit. So although all the guns will run dry, you run out of grenades, you're going to have to sort of collect up from the battlefield to keep things going. More often than not, you're going to find that with our weapon limits, again, because we're looking at hero tools solve a problem. Like you won't always have all the weapons that you want for any given situation. You've had to make some sort of sacrifice. Like you'd wish you'd have like area of effect explosive against a certain enemy type, but nope, you wanted that sniper rifle. And sorry,
that's what
you have to come up with a different plan. And that was intentional, again, because we really wanted to keep it on the player to like use your brain, think your way through this, think your way through this. You're not bringing the wheelbarrow along with you. Like,
we're good, guys.
You got tools. Just think about how to use them. And so that's it's fun. And like the weapons, like I said earlier, they go from the classic bullet-based guns of the '60s, your 45, your M14 rifle, to acquisition of laser technology, laser pistol, laser rifle, up to the plasma, because that's just that's how XCOM tech goes.
Yep.
When you see the green, you're awesome. Shooting green means you're awesome.
Exactly. Any more questions from the chatses?
Yeah, there's one. I don't know if we'll see. So is Jedi 06 again he's wondering if there's an explanation to why the weaponry is lost by enemy unknown.
So in Enemy Unknown's game? I mean,
I guess because like you are getting like all these future weapons leading up to it, so like why is that?
So why suddenly has it gone down? So one of the fun things about playing,
it was probably all destroyed to hide the secret.
You're so
everything.
Yeah, he's in it. He's
working for the government, man.
Yeah, he is. He's in it. But that is definitely that's part of the vibe where we round things up at, right? So like we want to get into that 60s military tension conspiracy thing. So paranoia. So like the warehouse in Indiana Jones, like you put the Ark of the Covenant in some warehouse. Like why is that even in Area 51?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that gets covered up. There's a lot of stuff that gets ditched. There's interdepartmental rivalry, right? We are not a big global organization. We're still the U.S. military industrial complex where the CIA doesn't work with the NSA, doesn't work with the FBI, doesn't work with the military. In the 60s, everyone's trying to get the bigger budget. And so we play into that about how the game resolves, about how a lot of the stuff that we had in the 60s, we lost because of the BS of the bureaucracy or the BS of the cover-up. And why we actually were set off to be not as strong when we get to Enemy Unknown. And and getting punched where he could have been much stronger, and that was another sad side effect of this Cold War tension, Cold War rivalry.
Okay.
So it's a great question because it's like where's our UFOs? We're good to go, right? Yeah. I mean, and then the game mechanic-y way is always like every XCOM in the franchise. Whether it was the original XCOM, then went to Terror from the Deep. The fun is now we reset the tech clock and go back up. Yeah. So it's like, yes, you kicked those sectoids' butts in the first game, but you know what? Lobster Man, different story.
Sorry.
You're going to have to learn laser harpoons. But that's the mechanical one. But the narrative explanation was more fun for us because it just tied in with the period and the theme we're going for.
Let's see. Pretty sure this is single player only. Is there multiplayer?
No, it's single player.
only?
Yeah.
Okay. Another question is, can your character max out?
Your character max out. So for you, your character will top off. So we do it in ranks. Agents go ranks 1 through 5. Carter goes ranks 1 through 10.
Oh, nice.
And so yeah, it is definitely possible in a single playthrough if you're on the ball to max out Mr. Carter if you're on top of everything that you can possibly do. It's really easy to max out agents at a certain point, like a level or 2, a level or 3, with the goal being, again, that no one agent can have everything that class has available. Yes. Build that roster.
Right, that's why you build the roster.
Yep.
It's getting a little hectic here in the game. I'm seeing some incapacitations happening.
Yeah, guys are dropping. We're moving through this fight, and again, like the battlefields on our game are also pretty interesting because we're going in and out of a familiar 1960s America that purely alien environments, things that are extraterrestrial, quite literally, and then the fun is the nooks and cracks in between, where this was like a 1960s city street that has been overrun by outsider actual installations that have been putting down military fortifications right in small town USA, and you're sort of fighting through the cracks of our world. We like the concept of the aliens literally and figuratively and thematically invading America and destroying it. So we can see that Joe's laid down a good shield on top of his agent. It's going to do a nice sort of safety net.
Is that something he mind controlled, or was that like some type of decoy I saw him throw out over
That was him emitting his shield. Carter, I think at this level doesn't. No one here has a mind control ability.
Okay.
I can either confirm or deny that you get one, but I guess I kind of spoiled. Like you can get, if they can do it to you, if they can do it to you, you can let me do it to them in the game. It's pretty awesome to turn the tables. But like things like that shield ability are great because like when you get dropped on the ground or an agent gets dropped, you make this little bubble of safety. You run out there, you get your guy back up, and even with your heels, on your back on your heels or your back to a wall, you have to come up with these little plans that go like, oh, how do I get myself out of this, or how do I save that dude? So he's doing different combos here. Combat stims for the group buff. He's going to, I think, fire off that disrupt as well, unless he thought better of it. I was chatting to weaken that guy's armor, and he's facing a tough situation with a rampaging mutant about to come in an enclosed area.
That doesn't look good.
Which is never good, because when the mutant pounds, he pounds hard, and you don't actually want to be in enclosed areas with him. So this is going to be one of those spots where I wouldn't be surprised if we see Joe have a guy or two drop during this fight, but he's wisely retreating to the rear, which in the Bureau is a valid tactical decision. Retreat to the rear. Yeah, this is the smartest thing you can do, is back off a little bit, buy yourself some room. So he's whittling through the mutant here's armor to get to the soft creamy center. He's going to drop a shield sphere. Joe, can I see your powers really quick just to see what you have available? Awesome. How about the diversion, which is the equivalent of creating a holographic agent, something that's going to distract, pull aggro from the mutant and buy you more time to put some rounds on target. And then the crit strike is a great, I shoot through cover with alien technology, now R's power. Boom.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, you can see the mutant went, what the hell is this? I'm pissed off at this mute. I will kill this agent. And he's buying him some time to whittle away from that armor because, as this guy slowly plods and gets closer, it's just going to get harder and harder to not watch somebody get dropped. But you can see even with, the glow, even with the plan, it's taken a bit of time to get to that creamy center, and just now it's starting to go. The lift ability that Carter has, great way to pull guys out of cover, exposing them some coordinated fire. Not super powerful against mutants, they're just really heavy.
Right.
Sort of pick them up a little bit. It's like those claw machines, right? Like you think you get the prize, but it slips right out of your hands.
I want you to know, Joe, I believe that you wouldn't have lost anyone, and you didn't, so
I
was a betting man.
I would like the world to know that Joe and I have shown the game several times, and he has indeed lost people.
It's happened.
It could happen.
Shh, it's never happened.
But the confidence is good.
It's a flawless record.
Not today.
Yeah, Joe's
Not
actually,
today.
At this point, Joe's he's one of our better players. I have no doubt, because he's played himself a lot of Bureau. The fun part is though, like we've all realized, is like because it requires you being on the ball, because it's real time. Even for us that are familiar with the game, if we ever sort of really slack off and get too caught up in something else, which is the reason why Joe's driving and I'm talking, like it's still really easy to die because it's like you got to be on it.
Oh, definitely. If you're talking and playing, it's easy to get,
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
of wires crossed.
Yeah, something suffers. Suddenly you're
So
drooling.
is there a story behind the thing on his back here? What do we have and on his arm? What's the?
So great. Yeah, it's a great thing to talk about. So backpacks are sort of a mechanic for us to have a high degree of character customization.
Okay.
So here we are, like we're in one of those mid-mission resupplies where you can swap out agent types and hook
good
guys up.
timing
Yeah,
then.
this
Nice.
is perfect. If you go into the equipment, you collect schematics for backpacks throughout the battlefield, and they give you basically specialized powers like I am good against shields, I'm good against armor, I heal at an increased rate, like I pick up double ammo. Little customizers that you apply to Carter and or the squad, and good incentive to hunt in the nooks and crannies in the world.
Okay.
That's what is on his back. The cuff mittens is our XCOM affordance for where the powers come from.
Okay.
All right, and so obviously, like we're trying to have fun game mechanics, but we want to have them somewhat fictionally grounded. So the nano constructs of the cuffs will allow the crazy, what would basically just be agent magic.
Right.
And you'll see them researching these things in the lab, actually, because the lab does exist with our 3D base, where they're doing experiments, and you're seeing them develop the technology that you will then be taken into the field with you later. Here's the power selection screen, so you can see as you go through the ranks, you'll have different branching choices, and then it will collapse in. Here's Carter's of the different things he can do, called the perks, and customize. Let's swap over to an agent.
And when you unlock, is that a permanent unlock, or can you like sort of take back points?
You can
reallocate?
never respec in our game. So once you've made a decision on what Carter's going to do, whenever his agent's going to do, that's the way it goes.
And that sounds good. I mean, that sort of that feeds into the build out the roster thing. You know, it's like,
exactly.
you'll go a certain way down one path and be like, man, you know what? It would be good to have something down the other side. Let's try that.
Oh yeah, I'll try something different. You can see in our, the agents follow a similar thing. Each class has a different sort of style to the tree on where it will branch or it will collapse. They give them something unique and flavor to them. And then, as you asked, if we go to customization, here's where you can change their last name or first name. Don't name them after me, Joe. And
If there's one guy that's gonna fall,
yeah, that's bad. It's always
throw him
bad
in the
juju.
front. He sacrifice.
Yeah, XCOM taught me not to name people after my friends, and I think it was like Final Fantasy III, to not name NPCs after girls I have a crush on. It's just bad. Just don't do that. But you can see the color customizations are both sort of like classic and stylish to like ludicrous, depending on how you want to do it. I make most of my guys go Johnny Cash all black because it's period appropriate. And just cool, though it can be painful in the darker levels to go like, where did my dude go? Where did my guy go? But that's where the equipment comes in. So the different, each backpack has a unique graphic, and so as you play, you can actually start to tell what you have or what your agents have by just the visual idea of, oh, I know that pack.
Now, in past XCOM, there's a sort of continuum of weapon upgrades where, once you get to a certain, when you get to the laser or you get to the plasma, you wouldn't ever for any reason go back to the laser or standard human weapon. Is that the same here? Like it just gets better and better, or is there a reason to pick a lower tech?
Yeah, there's
other than just because you're, say, I'm going to try and be a badass and do it without alien tech or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely, there's a lot of people that do just like to do the I'm going to be a badass and do this whole thing with the 45. We are very XCOM-esque in that things get outdated. They get outclassed by new weapon types that you have. There are certain, some things are not 100%. There's some orthogonal weapons. Like, this is not categorically better, it's different. Things like the blaster launcher, it's like, it's a different kind of weapon because it does a different behavior, but by and large, laser's better than bullets, plasma's better than laser.
Right.
One reason why you wouldn't just take the laser or the plasma might be that you're in a human environment, a real environment, you know that ammo for bullet-based weapons is going to be more plentiful because the cop cars have left these things. The military guys that died have left bullets, and so you might choose to go, I'm going to keep the shotgun because it's not the best,
find more.
But more ammo, and we'll have to swap out. But it does feel very XCOM in that if given a choice, I will gladly take the plasma sniper rifle before I take the bullet sniper rifle.
So we're not expecting just generic ammo drops. There is weapon type specific.
Yes, bullets, and then energy ammo for the outsider weaponry.
Gotcha.
And having to go in between the two of them, they get that little level of granularity.
So I could find myself with some awesome plasma weapon and no ammo for it,
which
is
in
the wrong context.
Yes, depending on the moment that happens, could be a very
kicking myself for that decision.
Yeah, frustrating thing. That's a point where you.
But it looked so cool.
Yeah, but the cool thing, right? Because in the Bureau, it's like in that situation because you have your two, your XCOM XCOM agents, what a colleague of mine formerly referred to as your ex-bros. At that point, like, you just, if that was, say, like a Gears or other shooter, you're like, this is going to be very painful. And our game's like, well, you're not shooting for a bit. Sweet, issue orders.
Right.
Use your guys. They're going to do everything. In fact, we have an achievement and a trophy for, like, beat an entire fight without ever shooting your guns. Like, just
Fantastic.
control your squad and win that way. And that's very satisfying as well.
Time to have those skills kick in.
Yep.
So quick question, because I can't really hear the music, so I might as well ask it. Does the music in this game have the same type of creepy, unsettling atmosphere that Enemy Unknown has? And follow up to that, who is the composer of the soundtrack? Like a 2-for-1.
So there are various people that contributed to the soundtrack. So I don't want to actually leave anyone out by only naming a few. I'm a little scared.
That's safe. That's a safe answer.
That is safe. That's one of my
answer.
biggest public anxieties about speaking is like, dear Lord, don't let me offend someone who put their life's blood into this. So I don't know if people will find us as creepy as Enemy Unknown. Like, it'd be presumptuous of me to assume that the people would have that vibe. I know that what we tried to do with our soundtrack was we wanted to hit the period of the 60s. We wanted to get some of the surrealness of the alien side, but we wanted to find it in a 60s vein. So we took for a lot of inspiration from things like The Day the Earth Stood Still, a lot of the movies of Hitchcock, like North by Northwest, and the way that he would use music, in that of the period to get that vibe. So we're trying to get something that is both, gets the tension of combat and the conflict, gets the terror and tension, that freaky, creepy thing as well, hits the orchestration. What we really try not to do is have a big, like, in-your-face soundtrack, like, pop, 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 because we wanted to keep it within the 60s. So hopefully people will find a range of emotions that happen as you go through. And then, obviously, the music is trying to help support the narrative. So since it's a big story-based game, where the story is at, what's going on in the plot is also a big influencer on what we're trying to do with the score itself.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's cool.
I didn't get to see the whole...
that sectopod.
This is another one like the Muton where it's like you're gonna have to bring everything together.
I'm just gonna say,
death.
in 3 dimensions and up close, this is far more terrifying than Enemy Unknown.
Oh, I would want to say thanks, but I don't want the guys at Firaxis to not think their game is terrifying because it's terrifying.
Oh, it's still terrifying.
It's like, wow.
Don't get me wrong.
Chrysalid. But yeah, the Sectopod is another example, like the classic Enemy comeback. And our bit of our remix, though, this Sectopod brought to bear by the Zujari is actually being powered by the desiccated husk of a sectoid inside of it, being wired in his little brain. Some people are worried about the enslaved sectoid vibe. Like, does that mean that sectoids are good and the outsiders are bad? I'm like, no, it's like goblins in Uruk-hai. They're both bastards, but there's a hierarchy of bastards.
Hierarchy of bastard.
I didn't get to see the full roster, but was there any female agents?
There are no female agents, and this is one of the ones, like, if we, looking to continue the franchise or expand, that we'd want to change. Sadly, like, so we, as a studio, we're actually a pretty integrated studio. We have over a dozen plus female employees, and for a game studio, I mean, that may not sound like anything for anyone else, but for a game studio, like, that's a high percentage. But we wanted to focus a bit on the tension of that 60s and talk about the society of the time in the game. And one of those things is, it wasn't an integrated military, right? It wasn't an integrated culture. So, gender, nationality, creed, race, sexuality, these were hot ticket issues of people trying to get acceptance within the culture in a way that's far different than how things are now. And so to bring that to the forefront, we actually had to make the decision to walk away from being like, and you'll have female agents as well, so we can make a point of why aren't there female agents?
Right.
So there are females in the HQ and XCOM, showing that XCOM is beginning to be more progressive than the society around it, and it very much is more progressive than society around it, as a foreshadow to it becoming the global organization, which is more progressive than any other nation.
With both genders and all different nationalities and all of that.
So we wanted to focus in on that origin. But that's a great question. Truth be told, it's also one of the ones sort of struggled with, because I think one of our big philosophies is you should be able to do and see anything you want, whether it looks like you or it looks like the you want it to be, or just a you want to explore. And so there was a lot of debate and argument over that one decision, which is kind of funny.
Well, thank you, Morgan and Joe, and anything you guys want to say to the fans and
This comes out, what?
buyers. It comes out in 5 days.
It comes out
5
next
days.
Tuesday in the States for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC, and then the 23rd internationally, obviously for all those platforms. I guess, I think Joe and I would both agree we appreciate the time to be able to come, show the game, talk about what we think is cool with it and what we're trying to accomplish. And I just would ask anyone who's interested to, check out, the live streams like this, read anything that we posted, check out our dev diaries and videos. I think the game speaks better in motion than it does in screenshot to sort of really get what it's attempting to be.
Oh, for sure.
And then, and just, check it out, and hopefully they see something that they find exciting.
Awesome. Well,
thanks a lot.
thank you guys so much for coming again. This was the Bureau XCOM Declassified. Looks, for me, again, like, it looks a lot better than I thought it was, like, based on what I saw before, just like you said, in motion, and, it's great. I hope it opens some eyes for everyone else that was watching too. So thanks, guys. And thanks, Ryan, for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
Didn't want to forget you. Remember? We just had this story here.
Can't forget.